Okay, welcome to the deep dive. We've got this really interesting resource you sent over. It's all about speaking English, not just, correctly by the book,
Right.
but actually sounding natural, like a native speaker does day to day.
Exactly. It's less about those strict grammar rules we all learned
Yeah.
and much more about the real flow, the living language people actually use.
Right. So the source material we're diving into today, it really focuses on bridging that gap. The gap between textbook English and how people really talk.
That's the core idea. Our mission here is to pull out the key insights, the practical bits from this source, things that can help you, the listener, sound more fluent and natural in conversation.
Think of it like getting the inside track on sounding, more like you belong in the conversation. The source covers a lot common phrases, those tricky pronunciation things, ways to practice.
And even navigating real situations like ordering coffee or talking at work, plus the cultural stuff too.
Yeah, those unwritten rules, it really looks at the how and why of native speech.
Okay, so let's jump in. First up, the source talks a lot about everyday vocabulary.
Right, those phrases that native speakers use all the time, but maybe you didn't focus on in your English classes.
Definitely. The source highlights a bunch. Like instead of always saying, it's okay or don't mention it, you hear no worries constantly. It's casual friendly.
Oh yeah, no worries is everywhere. And what about answering, how are you? The source points out that I am fine, thank you, and you sounds a bit stiff.
Yeah, very formal, I'm good, thanks, or just good, thanks, is way more common, much more natural feeling.
Okay, what else?
Well, there's kind of, or
Yeah.
just kinda. The source explains it's used to soften statements, like it was kind of weird or I'm kind of tired, means a little bit or sort of.
Right, takes the direct edge off. And then simple things for logistics, like letting someone else choose, it's up to you.
Super useful. Or agreeing to something sounds good. Seems basic, right?
Yeah.
But the source stresses that using these consistently, that's what builds that natural conversational flow.
It really is the small stuff sometimes.
It is. And the source gives examples for specific situations too, like explaining a difficulty.
Yeah.
You might say, well, that's the thing. It's a concise way to introduce a problem.
Okay. Or turning something down politely.
Instead of a long explanation, just I'll pass.
Yeah.
Simple, clear, polite enough usually.
And acknowledging someone's point, like if they convince you of something.
Fair enough. Yeah. Shows you accept their point or reasoning.
It's amazing how much these little phrases do. And the source says, you got to use them, right? Not just know them.
Absolutely crucial. You can recognize fair enough all day long. But until you actually start saying it in a conversation, it's not really part of your active, natural English.
Okay, so that's vocabulary. But sounding native is also massively about the sound itself, the pronunciation. The source gets right into this, especially how native speakers often squish words together or use reductions, it calls them.
Yes. This is all about speed and smoothness. It's not lazy speech necessarily. It's efficient. Native speakers blend sounds or shorten words to talk faster, more fluidly.
This is where you get those classic examples, the source list, right? Like going to, becoming,
Gone out.
and want to,
Oh no.
give me,
Let me
and the ever-present don't know.
to know. Exactly. These aren't separate slang words, really. They're just what happens phonetically when you speak quickly and casually.
Yeah.
Trying to say, I do not know, very clearly in a relaxed chat can actually sound a bit odd.
Yeah, less natural than just, I don't know. And it's not just single words changing. The source talks about intonation, the music of the language.
Totally. The rise and fall of your voice. It carries so much meaning and emotion. Like a rising pitch at the end usually signals a question. Are you serious?
Versus a falling pitch for a statement. I really like it.
Right. But it's also about where you put the stress, the emphasis for feeling.
Like saying, that's amazing, hits different than just, that's amazing.
Exactly. The source really hammers this home. You need to mimic the rhythm, the melody, the emotion of native speech. It's not just about getting the sounds right, it's about capturing the attitude.
Okay, so we've got the phrases, we understand the sounds, but you need to actually practice this stuff actively. What techniques does the source recommend?
It's big on active repetition and something called shadowing. Basically, not just listening passively, but actively imitating what you hear.
And it gives specific sentences to work with, which is great. Things like, hey, what have you been up to?
Yeah, or I was just about to call you. Really common conversational chunks.
So how does the shadowing work, according to the source?
It suggests a process. First, repeat it slowly. really focusing on connecting the words, the sounds. Then try saying it at a more natural conversational speed. And finally, try to match the native speaker speed, including those reductions like what and the intonation.
And practicing those quick reactions too, right? The source lists things like, no way.
Seriously, you're joking. Exactly. Tell me about it. Yeah, those little interjections.
But it's not just saying the words.
No, definitely not. The source makes a great point. You have to practice them with the right tone, the right speed, even the right sort of facial expression to make them sound authentic. Like you actually mean no way.
Right, you're kind of performing the reaction.
In a sense, yeah.
So the source is really good at not just giving you these tools, but showing how they actually work in, real life.
It breaks down typical scenarios like ordering coffee. The example dialogue isn't stiff like, I desire one coffee. It's more natural.
Hi, can I grab a medium latte, please?
Yeah, great. Yeah, I hear that all the time. Softer than can I have?
Exactly. And the response might be, sure, for here or to go. And you just say, to go, please, or to go, thanks. Simple, natural chunks.
Okay, or the work school example about checking on a report.
Yeah, instead of a blunt, did you read the report? The source suggests. Did you get a chance to look at the report? It's a bit gentler.
You get a chance to. Nice softener. And reply.
Something like, yeah, I went over it this morning. Looks solid. Went over it, meaning reviewed it. And looks solid, like it seems good, no major issues.
Precisely. These kinds of phrases, these chunks, make you sound fluent because you're not mentally translating word by word. You're using established blocks.
Gotcha.
And making plans.
The source has an example like, hey, want to catch up this weekend?
Wanna? There it is again. And catch up, meaning meet up, socialize.
Right. And the other person might say, yeah, sounds good. Saturday work for you.
Work for you, meaning is Saturday okay? Simple, efficient.
Seeing these phrases used in contexts like this really helps, doesn't it? It makes it easier to imagine yourself using them.
Yeah, it makes the learning feel more applicable, less abstract.
Definitely sticks better.
Yeah. Okay, so beyond the actual words and sounds, the source also touches on something trickier, cultural nuance.
Ah, yes, the stuff that's not explicitly taught but everyone seems to know, like politeness.
Exactly. The source highlights how important politeness, and often using softeners, is in many English-speaking contexts. A very direct command can sound abrupt or even rude.
Like just saying, give me that report.
Right. Compared to, could you possibly send me that report when you have a moment? Or even just, could you pass that to me, please? Huge difference in feel.
And the source mentions using phrases like, I was wondering if you could, before making your request.
Or, would it be okay if? These add a layer of politeness, acknowledging you're asking for something.
Reduces the feeling of imposition.
Yeah. And then there's the flip side. Indirectness. The source points this out too. Sometimes being too direct is also a problem.
You mean like, not saying that's a bad idea straight out?
Exactly. You might hear, I'm not sure that's the best approach. Or, well, that's certainly one way to look at it.
Which might actually mean, I think that's a terrible idea.
It often can, yes. Or even just
interesting.
Recognizing these potentially indirect ways of expressing disagreement or doubt is crucial. The source really stresses paying attention to the subtext sometimes.
Okay, this is a lot to take in. Vocabulary, pronunciation, practice, scenarios, culture. So how does the source suggest you actually do this? How do you improve fluency day to day?
It gives some really concrete, practical daily techniques. One is simple. Record yourself speaking. Just talk for, say, 2 minutes about anything your day, a movie you saw, whatever. Then listen back.
I can see how that would be helpful, even if maybe a bit awkward to hear yourself.
It can be. But it's so valuable for catching your own habits, your pronunciation quirks, the places you hesitate.
Makes sense. What else?
Daily shadowing practice. We mentioned shadowing earlier. Pick a short, natural phrase or sentence you heard, find a recording of a native speaker saying it, and just practice mimicking them. Focus on the rhythm, the intonation, not just the words. Drill it a few times.
And that connects back to the source's point about learning phrases, not just single words, right?
Exactly. Learn chunks like at the end of the day, or to be honest, or I guess you could say, as whole units. When you learn these chunks, you don't have to build every sentence from scratch in your head while you're talking.
Yeah, it frees up mental energy, makes speech flow better.
Totally. It helps you sound more connected, more natural.
And to really kickstart things, the source lays out a sort of 7-day challenge.
Yeah, it's a great way to make it actionable. It breaks down putting this stuff into practice, into small daily steps. Like day 1, just make a point of asking someone, how's it going? instead of maybe a more formal greeting.
Okay. Day 2.
Try ordering something using that "can I grab a" phrasing. Coffee, sandwich, whatever.
Day 3. Find a natural moment to use "no worries."
Day 4. Tell someone a brief story, maybe about your weekend, and focus on making it flow conversationally.
Day 5. Try to use an idiom you've learned. The force suggests "it's not my cup of tea," as an example, meaning you don't really like something.
Day 6. Consciously practice softening a request using one of those phrases like, "Could you possibly?" or "Would you mind?"
And Day 7 ties back to the recording.
Yep. Do that 2-minute recording, maybe specifically talk about your language learning goals or what you found easy or hard during the week.
That sounds like a really practical way to start integrating all these ideas right away.
It provides structure, makes it less overwhelming.
So when you boil it all down, what's the core message from this source about sounding like a native?
I think the big takeaway is that it's not magic. It's not about having a special talent. It really comes down to focused practice, getting lots of exposure to real language, and, importantly, having the right attitude.
Being willing to try, basically, and maybe not worrying too much about perfection.
Exactly. The source essentially says, listen, repeat, speak, make mistakes because you will learn from them,
Yeah.
and just keep going. Get better over time.
So for you, the listener, thinking about your own journey with English, this source reframes fluency, doesn't it? It's less about reaching some final, perfect destination.
And more about actively participating, jumping into the flow of the language as it's actually used.
Which kind of leads to a final thought, maybe something to mull over. If language is always changing, shaped by culture, by new slang, by how we all use it every day, then what does speaking like a native even really mean? Is it about hitting some static target?
Or is it maybe more about learning how to navigate and participate in that dynamic, constantly shifting river of communication itself?